Howdy, howdy. Welcome to Office Hours FM, episode number 65. I'm your host, Carrie Dills, and very excited to introduce you to my friend, our guest today, Natalie. How are you, Natalie MacLees?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. I pressed the go live button and I always need to cough or something always comes up like right when I press that button, and today it was like I needed to burp. So anyways, so disgusting. That's what a way to start up.
Well,
So before we dive into chatting with Natalie, seriously, the clench today. I would love to thank our show sponsors, and our episode sponsors today are Desktop Server by ServerPress. Have you ever used them, Natalie?
I use them every day.
See, testify.
It's so awesome. Yeah.
They are basically, if you haven't heard of Desktop Server, it combines your PHP server, your MySQL database, and MAMP or XAMPP or WAMP or whatever AMP is on for your OS. It combines all of those so that you don't have to do that. And it's a way just to quickly spin up WordPress development sites locally. You can check them out at serverpress.com. And then our other sponsor is DreamHost. And you probably have heard of DreamHost because they've been around the hosting world for ages and have always been known for their extreme affordability. Now they have a managed WordPress hosting solution called DreamPress 2. And it's actually the most affordable managed WordPress hosting in the market and pretty cool. So check those guys out over at dreamhost.com/office hours to learn more about that. And without further ado, let me tell people, Natalie, I got to tell people how to get their questions into you because, there's going to be questions. Several ways you can participate. If you are watching this over on Google Plus, on the event page, you can just a little post a note there. You can use the Hangout Q&A if you would like. Or if you're on Twitter, just tag your tweet with hashtag OfficeFM, and we'll do our best to answer on the show, unless it's a troll. And then maybe we'll answer. We don't know.
We might have a little fun with a troll.
You know what? It is fun. There's the old adage, don't ever feed a troll. But sometimes it is fun to kind of toy with them, like with the cat and the little ball of string. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, which I saw your cat picture, your kitty picture earlier. You have a home office companion.
I have two. Yes. And one is right here on the desk just off camera right now. I'm waiting for him to do something catastrophic, like tip over my water. But we'll
say catastrophic?
Catastrophic.
Oh, be here all week, guys.
Well, Ollie's a baby. He'll be a year old tomorrow, so.
Sweet. Lots of playfulness.
He's still kind of hyper, yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive in. So, Natalie, for folks that haven't had a chance to meet you yet, give us the quick rundown who you are and what you do.
All right. I am a front-end web developer. I have been building websites since 1996.
You're old.
I know, I'm old. I run Purple Pen Productions. That is about 6 years old, my company, building websites for small businesses and nonprofits. And I am also co-founder and co-chapter leader of Girl Develop It Los Angeles. So running that chapter here in Los Angeles, doing lots of classes and workshops and mentorship for women who are interested in getting into tech.
Awesome. Sorry, I couldn't get my finger off the mute trigger fast enough. Yeah, so I was looking at your website over at nataliemac.com, and you have like 1,000 things that you do, and I don't know how you find the time to do as much community involvement as you do. So would love to talk at some point on the show today about your time management and kind of how you split your, well, let's go ahead and talk about it. So you're running an agency, Purple Pen Productions.
Yes.
And how many folks, what does your team look like over there?
We've got a team of 4. So we're pretty small, and do a lot of small business, nonprofit websites. So that's kind of where I found my niche, where I find personal satisfaction in working with those customers, and kind of helping them improve their online presence and things like that.
So are you the jack of all trades? Like you're actually selling the business, managing the projects, doing the development work, et cetera, et cetera? Or are you, is your team doing that?
Yeah, I still wear a lot of hats. My other 3 team members are part-time. And I also collaborate with freelancers too, like I'll bring people in for projects. But I am still wearing a lot of hats and doing a lot of the business work myself. So I am pretty much the project manager for every project, and I almost always do the development as well. And then I will farm out design. I have an office assistant who helps out, and I have junior level developer who helps with some things as well. So there's help, but I'm still doing a lot.
Seriously. So how much time are you, I mean, assuming that you sleep at some point, how do you split your time between the agency and then Girl Develop It? And then even, I know you're involved in the local meetups and all that good WordPress stuff out there.
Yes. So I pretty much work about a 40-hour week on Purple Pen. Depending on what's going on with Girl Develop It in any given week, that's another 10 to 20 hours running that chapter and organizing classes. We're actually kind of taking it easy for July and August since it's summer. So like I am right now in the middle of 2 whole weeks without a Girl Develop It event. I'm so excited about that. And then I also have a plugin with Nathan Tyler, the Draw Attention plugin, and we have been working on that 4 hours a week. So he and I get together. Now, it was supposed to be Tuesdays, but I think we've only actually met on Tuesdays twice.
Are you actually meeting up in person to do this?
Oh, yes. We meet up in person we both really like this coffee shop that's right by my house, although Nathan doesn't live that far away. And we meet there for 4 hours every week to work on our plugin. We actually just had a big release Monday. We added a bunch of new features and did some bug fixes and things like that. So that is how I got that done. And then I wrote a jQuery book, and I basically did that the same way by just setting aside time. I went to that same coffee shop. I probably owe them some money or something.
Here's some money for your Wi-Fi collection.
Yeah, thank you. I went there 2 hours every morning. Like the first thing I would do in the morning is get up and go to that coffee shop for 2 hours and just work on the book until it was done. So just by kind of setting aside and boxing time for something that you really want to get done, I have found that that's what works, and also to do it somewhere besides your normal office.
That is really interesting. So, but only on those certain projects, right? Like for the plugin, you're leaving your home office, or do you not really ever work at your home office?
Oh, no, I work at my home office almost all the time, and I found that it's like for these kind of side projects, right, that aren't, we built the plugin, it's a premium plugin, you can buy it, but the whole time you're developing it, there's no income coming in from it, so it's kind of this side project. Kind of the same thing with the book. I got an advance, but like really, maybe I could like take you to dinner with the advance I got.
I was going to say you could buy a cup of coffee at that shop with your advance.
So, like, again, it's like this project that has a long-term payoff, but it's not generating immediate income. So it's a side project. It's something you're kind of doing on the side. And I found that the way to really get that done is to set aside time for it. And maybe it's just me, but if I'm in my normal office, I'm looking at email, I'm looking at Twitter, I'm like, oh, let me just go in and tweak this thing for this client. And I'm really distracted and kind of in the mode of doing my normal work. But by like setting aside not just a time but also a place where I know this is what I'm going to go work on, I'm going to be really focused on it and get it done, it works so much better.
Wow, that's great advice. I know a lot of the listeners to this show are also work from home. If you're listening live and on Twitter, I'd be curious whether or not you always stick in the home office or whether you venture out of the house. So tweet that at a little hashtag OfficeFM because I'd be curious to know. I tend to work primarily at home, but then usually like Monday, I could never leave the house on a Monday. Tuesday, I might not leave the house. By Wednesday, I'm going 8. I can't think of the clean translation of that, but I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
So I'll either go to a Starbucks or there's actually a new little brewery. I like to go just hang out. It's kind of chill and use their Wi-Fi. And yeah, it's nice to go with the mission of, okay, in this little 2-hour time block, this is what I'm going to knock out. So nice, good advice there.
Thanks.
Okay, so the plugin, there's a free version available on WordPress.org, and then would you, for folks that haven't gotten to try it out yet, would you give a little rundown of what it does?
Sure. It lets you create interactive images, and you insert them in any post or page with a short code. So it highlights, you draw a little area on a map on the image, basically, of I want this area to be a hotspot, which was the original name of the plugin, which I could get into this whole thing about naming plugins, but we'll skip that for now. And then when somebody comes to your site and they roll over that hotspot, it'll highlight. You can pick the color and the stroke color that you want it to highlight in. And then if they click it, it'll load up some more information. It could be on the side, it could be in a light box, it could be in a tooltip, or it could take them to another website. So great for like real estate floor plans or trade show floor plans if you want to show who's in each booth, things like that. And it's been really fun to see the things people are using it for, actually, like charting out vacation homes. Somebody did a boat. Somebody did a really complicated, like, professional video camera and all the little controls on it and what they did. So it's really fun.
Nice. And then there's a premium version of it.
Yes.
And okay, so let's talk about getting into the product space. So, and by the way, I didn't warn you, Natalie, this show sort of meanders like a unmarked path through the forest. You never know quite where we'll go or where we'll circle back around to. Sometimes we get lost. But okay, so you've had Purple Pen for 6 years. You've been doing clearly, I mean, since mid-90s, you've been doing web development and client services. And now you've got your book. I don't know if we can officially call that a product. I guess, I mean, it is officially a product. And then your plugin, is this like a slow movement into products to kind of alleviate some of that client work, or you're just figuring out more ways to work in your day?
I think, yeah, it's just more ways to work on the day and more ways to earn income. I think just to have variety in the number of income streams coming in, and just to try new things. The plugin actually grew out of client work. I had implemented that feature on a website for a client, and they loved it. Other people seeing that in my portfolio then contacted me and asked me just for that bit of functionality. And then the same client actually in another project needed that again, and that's kind of where the idea for that came from. But yeah, so there's free and pro version. The free version lets you just have one image with up to 20 hotspots in it, which we thought was enough to let you really try it out, see how it works, and get a feel for it. It might be enough for some people, which is great. It's fine. But then the pro version, you can have as many hotspots as you want, as many images as you want, and then there's a bunch of different layout options and different options that you don't have in the free version.
And then you've got a partner in this.
I do, Nathan Tyler. Yeah. So it ended up being like the perfect plugin for us to work on together because he's a back-end developer and I'm a front-end developer, and it was almost an exactly 50-50 split on the work on this plugin.
Wow, that's actually kind of rare.
Yeah, so we both kind of wrapped up our work at almost the exact same time.
Oh, nice. We're getting lots of responses on The Office. Jackie says she sticks to home. Melanie works at home and stays at her desk, does not wander. Paul has a once a week a co-working spot. Suzette does not leave her house unless she has to. Amen, sister. Barry says he is a home office but would like to get out more. And yeah, and then we've got one that has Mike has a co-working space, but hardly ever works from there. Mike, I would spend that money on that co-working space on maybe a good beer or something.
Yeah.
If you're not using it.
We could come up with lots of alternative uses for that money.
Oh, well, let's get to some questions. So I titled this episode jQuery Ain't Scary. One, because you wrote the book for
Yes.
jQuery for designers, and then also because I like things that rhyme. Is your book where a true beginner would start with jQuery, or kind of what would be the prerequisite knowledge that book would be a good resource for?
Pretty much all you need to know going into the book is a little bit about HTML and CSS. It is written specifically for somebody who has never written JavaScript before, and really does a lot of hand-holding and explaining basic concepts that I think a lot of other books skip over. It's a really gentle introduction. It's not scary at all. Kind of step-by-step showing you how to do everything along the way. So I originally really struggled to learn JavaScript. I was a designer who used to do packaging and catalogs and things like that, and came to web development and really struggled with JavaScript for probably close to 10 years. I really had a hard time nailing it down, and then finally kind of started to figure it out. There's a really great book by Jeremy Keith called DOM Scripting, which really helped to make a few things click. And then weirdly, there was another book called ASP.NET for designers.
Wow, branching over to the .NET side of things.
I know. Well, I worked in a .NET shop. I've worked in a lot of different kinds of shops. I was working in a .NET shop and really struggling. So I got this book, which I think was this little self-published book. But it had this really excellent explanation of objects and methods and properties that finally clicked in my head reading that book, which applies to almost any programming language. And I kind of was able to pick it up from there. So when Pact Publishing came to me and asked me to write the very beginner's jQuery book, I jumped at the chance because I really wanted to write the book that I wish I had had when I was struggling so badly for so long to learn it.
That's awesome. Man, too bad future you couldn't have time traveled. Yeah. Technology's catching up. Yeah. Cool. So then you wrote you just released the update to that. Was there that much significant change in jQuery itself, or more of the other things it was interacting with?
Pretty significant changes to jQuery because they did the branch now where they're maintaining the 2 branches of the project, but also just changes to browsers and the internet and plugins and all kinds of things like that. So actually the second edition is about a 60% rewrite from the first edition, so it's a really major update. Oh wow.
Yeah, that's the thing about tech books is they do. I used to have I worked with ASP and ASP.NET, and I had these huge, the Rocks publisher, or the big red books that you could use to injure someone if they scared you. I I had those, and then I used them, I don't know, for maybe a year or so, and then I tried to go sell them at the used bookstore, and it was like, we can give you a nickel for this, and I was like, hey, that's a $50 book. But,
Yeah, pretty much by the time they can print it and get it on the shelves, it's already out of date. At least
well, that's
the little
depressing.
part of it. I know. So the publisher is like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up.
So is there an interactive component or an online component to the book where you can, download the files or examples that you're using and play with them?
Yeah, yep. All the example files for every chapter is online. You can download it and play around with it. And then I have gotten a little bit away from my podcast, but then I was also doing a podcast that came with a video and example files, which I am going to finish all 50 episodes, but I've just been swamped. So I'll be picking that back up again soon to finish it out.
I was just thinking you could have included those exercise files on a CD that was taped to the back of your book.
No, on a floppy.
Even better. Even better. Okay. So the podcast. I know you're on WP Water Cooler fairly regular on their panel, and then for a while you and Suzette Frank had a podcast going on, and then it sounds like this is a completely other adventure in podcast.
Yeah, because I don't have enough to do, so I always like to start new projects. Yeah, so Suzette and I had a podcast for a while. I'm on Water Cooler occasionally when I have an opinion or some knowledge about the topic. And then, yes, this was Designers Learning jQuery podcast. Well, I'm talking about in the past tense. It is the Designers Learning jQuery podcast. And it's just like a little 10 to 15 minute video that kind of walks you through one thing, like how to make tabs or how to use jQuery in no conflict mode. And then there's example files to download on GitHub to go along with it.
All right. Well, I'm going to be cheering for you all the way to episode 50.
Thank you. That was the goal, 50 episodes.
Okay, so as a front-end developer and a very diverse one at that, with all the things that you're doing, Jackie had asked a good question, which is, how do you keep up with stuff in the programming world? Are you shiny object syndrome and always kind of trying the newest thing that comes out, or how do you absorb and digest all that's out there?
Okay, so this is the method that I've developed after. Do you know that I built my first website almost 20 years ago? Next year will be 20 years. So after 20 years, this is what this is my strategy. I subscribe to a ton of RSS feeds, probably 50, or maybe more than that actually, maybe more like 75. So there's a collection of WordPress blogs, but then there's also just a collection of general web development blogs, CSS stuff, JavaScript stuff, jQuery stuff, responsive stuff. And what I do is I don't actually read all of that, but I'll kind of flip through it every day. So I have time that I set aside, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes that I spend every day kind of just perusing through the feeds. And if I see something mentioned that interests me, I might go check it out, but I don't really invest a lot of time into learning anything until I see it mentioned a lot.
That's actually really clever. So you're just headline scanning, and then if you if a topic looks like it's trending, if you will, then investigate further.
Yeah, like responsive design, right? It started showing up, like, oh, all right, a couple people are talking about it, whatever. But then, of course, we all know what happened. Everyone started talking about it. Same thing kind of with CSS preprocessors, right? First there was less, and then there was Sass pretty quickly afterward. Everyone was chit-chatting, and then finally, when enough people are talking about it, like, all right, maybe this is something I should actually go learn. Because if you try to go learn everything, it would just be impossible, number one, to even learn it all, but you would never get anything else done. You'd just be learning all the time and never actually building anything.
Very true. I kind of use my Twitter feed like that, but it's more like to tell me what's going on in the world. If I start seeing, I mean, like, you know, who won the women's game against, you know, U.S. and Germany, or, you know, what did the Supreme Court do this week? Or I don't even know these things literally until I start seeing them all fly by on my Twitter feed. And I'm like, oh, well, that's what people are doing today.
Yeah, I kind of do the same thing with like the world news. Yeah. I figure I learn about everything that's important. Someone will mention it eventually. And also, if you're just like out getting a manicure or whatever, it gives you something to talk about. You could just be like, so what's happening in the world? I don't know. You can tell me all about it.
I haven't left my, my home office in 3 days. If you could, oh, and you're the first human I've talked to.
Yeah. So what's happened in the world in the last 3 days?
Well, so what do you, what RSS reader do you use?
Feedly.
Feedly, okay.
And I pay for their pro version because it's awesome.
Did FeedBurner ever officially die, or is it still kind of dangling out there?
I'm not sure.
I still see it as an option on, and I'm like, wait, I thought there was an announcement like 3 years ago that it was going away. But.
Yeah, I was a user of that Google tool, but yeah, Feedly is pretty seamless. Like they copied all these features over, the same keyboard shortcuts and everything, so I'm good.
Well, that works. All right. Well, for anyone who has joined me a little late, welcome. I'm glad that you are tuning in today. I'm chatting with Natalie MacLees out of LA, and you can ask her questions by tagging it on Twitter with hashtag OfficeFM. And speaking of questions, we've got a couple. So
awesome.
So Devender is asking about the ebook. Which tools and services did you use to format, edit, and all that good stuff?
So for my book, I worked with a publisher, Pact Publishing, and they provided me with Word templates with all the styles kind of built in, and I used those. It was not that great, I have to say. But
yeah, that sounds brutal.
Yeah, so like, you know, they had their heading style, and I would write a headline and I'd have to go find the heading style in the list of styles and highlight it. And then there was styles for code and the first line of code and the last line of code and middle lines of code and code that's in the middle of a paragraph. And it was, yeah, there were thousands of them and I had to apply them all.
So you took more time probably editing than you did actually, or styling than you did actually writing, probably.
It was a lot of styling work, yeah. And then I don't really know. I know that they did some kind of processing on their side where they took my Word files after they were all edited and turned them into the book, but I don't really know what they did on their side to do that.
So they ultimately did the kind of the final polish to get it out.
Yeah, and they handled a lot of the technical stuff for me, which I guess is one of the advantages of working with a publisher.
Ding!
And the advance that paid for at least 2 cups of coffee.
That is awesome. You could get a fancy coffee even.
Yes, 2 fancy coffees.
I think there are some ebook or tools out there for creating ebooks that has simplified or streamlined the process. I couldn't tell you the name of a single one of those tools, but I do know that there's some out there. So the vendor might be worth investigating if you are pondering writing one.
And I know also that EPUB is just a zip of HTML and CSS. So EPUB behind the scenes, which is kind of the standard format of ebooks, it's just HTML.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Huh. And that's platform independent? Like you could read that on any reader?
Yeah, I think Kindle still won't directly read them, but you can convert them to the Mobi files, which is still an HTML format.
Okay. We've got another question. Going back to your plugin, is it object-oriented programming on that back end? Double OP? OOP? You down with OOP? You down with OOP? Just kidding. I can't take that back because it's out there. But
No, you can't. That's the problem with the live podcast. You can't even edit it out.
I can edit it before it gets on iTunes.
It is, actually, yes. And, well, Nathan just writes really awesome PHP, so all of his code is beautiful. And the JavaScript is all nicely compartmentalized and really nice for us to maintain. And then if you are a developer and you wanted to customize the plugin and how it works, we have ways for you to do that too.
I need to go read your book because I really do. I mean, I've taken courses, and this is going to sound so ridiculous. I take a class in JavaScript. I did, but it was about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But I always had this mental block against object-oriented, just kind of wrapping my head around the way it works. I don't know. Maybe your book will help it click for me.
I hope so. And then I teach JavaScript classes with Girl Develop It too.
So let's talk about Girl Develop It while we're at it. So this is, for people that aren't familiar, talk about the organization in just a little bit and then how your chapter works.
Sure. Girl Develop It is a nationwide nonprofit that aims to offer workshops, classes, and mentorship for women who are interested in getting involved in tech. And it is women, even though the name is Girl Develop It, it is women 18 and up who come into our classes. So we have a little over 50 chapters nationwide. We got 5 new ones just in the last month, so that's very exciting. And each chapter is very active in their local community, offers classes, workshops, social events, study groups, all kinds of things like that to get people kind of out of their houses and learning new skills and meeting one another and supporting one another. You know, the students who are more advanced turn around and help the students who are more junior to them who are just coming in. So it's a fantastic organization. Originally formed with Sarah Chips and Vanessa Hurst to address the lack of women in tech. They were both just like, we're so tired of everyone talking about how there's not enough women in tech. Let's actually do something about it. And this is what they came up with to do. But then we're also, we have scholarships available. We have laptops for loan. So we can take students who are in a bad spot, who are in financial distress, bring them in and help them learn some new skills and empower them into a career with a really bright future and really great earning potential as well. So it's a great organization, and I'm so pleased to be a part of it. So I helped to co-found and then run the Los Angeles chapter. We're about 1.5 years old, and we've got almost 1,200 members, and we've offered about 60 events so far in the Los Angeles area.
Wow, that is awesome. So if somebody wanted to fire up a chapter, if they're in an area that doesn't have one, they can just connect with headquarters, if you will, and
Yep. If you go to girldevelopit.com, in the main nav, there's a chapters button that you can go to see all of the chapters by state. And if there isn't one in your city, at the very top of the page, there's a link that says, "No chapter in your city? Start one." And you can go fill that in and get the ball rolling.
I love it. You just gave us a very nice walkthrough of exactly what to expect. That's awesome. Okay, so how long does the average person who comes in to the group stay? I mean, you indicated that people learn and then turn around and mentor others with their learning. Is this something that they'll do for 3, 4, 5 years?
I hope so. You know, we're still pretty new. Our chapter just being 1.5 years old, and actually the organization, the New York chapter was the first chapter, and they are 5 years old this month. And they still have a lot of people involved who were involved from the very beginning. So, yeah, it's definitely something where we're looking to really build the community and the connections between all the women in the community so that they can continue to support one another and get help from one another for indefinitely going forward.
That is awesome. Have you ever ended up hiring any of them as the freelancers that you sometimes outsource to after they've kind of come up through, well, I guess, like you said, you haven't been around that long, but.
Yeah, I haven't yet, but I look forward to when I can. That will be so exciting.
That's awesome. Last month I had Corey Ashton, who's down in San Antonio, on the show, and they run weekly free workshops for the community and just, coming up, teaching them about web development. And she said that it's actually resulted in sort of a hiring source.
Nice. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, you can teach them exactly the way that you like to do things, and then yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're getting to people too before they've developed bad habits.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes you develop really bad habits.
What do you find that for people that aren't for these women and girls coming in that that don't necessarily have a background in tech, what seems to be the biggest hurdle in or barrier to entry?
I think a lot of it is actually internal, like this fear that they're going to look dumb or not get it and not be able to figure it out. So we work really hard to make the classes really welcoming and really empowering so everybody feels really comfortable asking questions. In every class, we always say there's no dumb questions. Just raise your hand or shout it out and ask. You can ask questions anytime. You can ask anything. And the worst that the teacher's ever going to say is, that's not quite the topic we're discussing here, but come talk to me after class and we'll go over that. So everybody feels really welcome in our classes.
Nice. I had a follow-up question on that, but a squirrel ran by and I got completely distracted. So on that note, yeah. Build above it. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. I was going to ask his of all the things that you're teaching, how much does WordPress play into that?
We have a WordPress 101 class that we run about once a quarter. And then as we kind of build up our membership and get more people kind of moved past that absolute beginner stage, we'll offer classes in theme development and plugin development as well later on.
Cool. And then they can attend WordCamp. Any one of the number of WordCamps that happens in that greater LA area?
Oh yeah, last year WordCamp LA gave out almost 100 free tickets to Girl Develop It members to attend WordCamp.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I remember when I first, maybe it was at WordCamp San Francisco 2013, because that was my first WordCamp that was out on the West Coast. And there was this swarm of people, everybody I met. I was like, oh, where are you from? LA, Orange County, San Diego. I was like, oh my gosh, the entirety of this population is from that Southern California. And I was so impressed with the community there, like literally how huge it is that, it's large enough to have 2 meetups a week, where one is for beginners and one is, for more advanced. And yeah, hats off to you guys. I don't know how. Have you been involved with that since the beginning on the meetup planning side?
Yeah, I actually was. I didn't start it. Somebody else started the very first WordPress meetup group in Southern California, but she only ran it for a couple of months before she decided to step down, and I took it over. So that was 6 years ago. So I was super involved. My meetups, so when I took over the group, it was like 6 people meeting for coffee. And I don't, like, it wasn't because of me, but I think because WordPress was growing in popularity so much that within a year or two, my meetups were like 150 people coming out every month to the meetup groups, and it was insane, and it was a big problem because where do you find a venue for all these
Yeah.
people? And then the awesome thing that happened is a lot of people who were coming out to my meetup started their own little groups for their own neighborhood, because people, like, commuting in LA is a nightmare, and people were driving 2 and 3 hours to get to these meetups every month. So, somebody started one in Topanga Canyon, there's one in Pasadena, there's one in Hollywood, there's one in up in the valley, there's one in the South Bay, there's one in Santa Monica, and people were now able to access those and attend them without having to drive across town. So it was really awesome, and my meetup got smaller again, which was a blessing because it was so much easier to run when it was only like 30 or 40 people coming out instead of 150.
That's like a word camp. You're hosting a word camp.
Oh yeah, every month.
Every month. Oh my gosh, that is nuts.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we have a gigantic community here, and very active and very closely knit. And it's funny, just like on a completely unrelated, it was actually a Girl Develop It thing. Somebody from Girl Develop It was at the WordCamp in Miami and posted up this little video she was sharing, and I'm like, oh, know that person, know that person, know that person, know that person. Like, I knew over half the people in this video.
I'm telling you, everybody comes from that neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I won't make you talk about that anymore, unless you just want to, in which case we can. Okay, so you've given some tips about, you leave the house sometimes. That kind of helps you with productivity. What about creativity or kind of recharging? What does that for you?
Being outside in Southern California is pretty amazing year-round. So just going out for a walk, going to the beach, things like that are just really relaxing, I think, and really help to recharge. For sources of inspiration, when I'm working on design things, I do my best to look outside the web. I think if we only look at other websites to inspire us for design, all our websites kind of end up looking the same. So I subscribe to some design magazines, just general design magazines, and just kind of pay attention to other things going around, art galleries and museums and things like that, to get inspired by stuff that's all around instead of just the web. So I really enjoy, I'm really into vintage packaging right now, and the care that people used to take to package up and sell just the most mundane objects like Band-Aids and cinnamon. And now, we just throw everything in a plastic box and slap a label on it. It's not quite the same.
There really is an art to it.
Yeah, there is.
This has been a few years ago. My sister sent me a package in the mail, and I was more excited about opening the package than the actual contents, which were candy, for the record. It had this. You take it out of the cardboard box that was shipped in, and it's this beautiful black box with a green ribbon, and then and a little card on the outside that said, I don't know, some little inspiring quote, or like, "You're awesome today," or something like that. And it smells delightful, and then you open it up, and then inside of there is this whole other little unwrapping and opening experience till you finally get down to that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Is that the kind of packaging you did? Well, now I know I'm totally hijacking your thread of
No,
packaging.
that's an excellent example. That's, I remember when I was probably like 9 or 10 years old, my aunt and uncle came over to my house for Christmas, and they brought my sisters and I some toy. Now, what's funny is I don't even remember what it was. It was about the size of a shoebox. I don't even remember what the present was. What I remember is that my uncle had spent, I don't even know how long, wrapping these gifts in the most beautiful paper and ribbons, and there was a little French horn, like a little gold French horn ornament hanging off the bow, and like a little sprig of holly with berries stuck in it. And I just felt so special, you know, and treasured that he had taken the time to wrap this present like this. It was amazing. And it's funny because now I remember how he wrapped it, and I have no idea what the present was. No idea.
Okay, you were a rare kid that wasn't just ripping it.
Oh, I never just ripped in. I was always like, oh, very carefully unwrapped to save the paper for something. I don't know.
So then, totally appropriate that you ended up in packaging design.
Yeah.
Who were you doing?
Oh, it was terribly exciting. I did packaging for a line of lawn care equipment that was sold in Home Depot and Lowe's.
Awesome.
Yes, and just other things like that. And it was, I wanted to get into packaging design for so long because I was just so excited and passionate about it. And then when I actually got into it and finally landed some gigs doing it, it was really disappointing because it was mostly about what's the cheapest way we could package this. Like, what is the cheapest cardboard we could get to make a box for this product? And, you know, and it was all about the lowest possible budget for the package, and not really about, like, how can we make this something really beautiful that communicates about this product and makes people want to grab it and buy it. So I kind of feel like I left the packaging field being a little disillusioned.
Is there, and this question, if it's a stretch, you can tell me it's a stretch and we'll move on. But do you think there's a correlation? Because we're talking about user experience, right?
Oh, so, yeah, absolutely.
Are there any correlations between that sort of offline user experience of packaging and online user experience? Does anything translate in terms of good practices, or am I being ridiculous?
No, I think that it all ties together. You know, when you're talking about a brand or a company's message, it's all part of the same thing. The website, how they're going to package their product and sell it to you, what their advertising looks like, that's all a part of the user experience and how you relate to that. And I think that there's absolutely some correlation there between how are you going to present something to somebody, and is it going to be in this way where you take care and do it with intention and show them that this is something that's important to you and that they're important to you as a customer, or is it something where you're just going to slap it in the cheapest cardboard you can find and stick a label on it and throw it on the shelf? Like, I think both those things communicate something to the customer, and I think that, you know, there's a reason why higher-end brands cost a lot more, and it's not always huge differences in the quality of the product itself, but a lot of times in how it's presented and how evocative it is of different emotions and the way that we connect with it.
Well done answering that obscure question. You win the prize for today's episode.
Yay! Is it a fancy coffee?
Yes, it would be on the lookout for your mailbox. I will be sending it there. Okay, so the one thing my listeners always enjoy, and I enjoy, is hearing just sort of what you use as part of your workflow and your tools of the trade, if it were, as it were. And so Jackie asked specifically, do you have any favorite design tools, and do you design in the browser?
I do design in the browser.
Yes!
I get so frustrated trying to do things in Photoshop. So it's actually kind of a hybrid approach where, like if we take the WordCamp Los Angeles site, that's the most recent thing I designed, right? The big header image with the logo on it, like the logo I did in Illustrator because that's kind of the best tool for doing a logo. Then put that together with the image and all the filters and everything on it to make it look vintage in Photoshop. But once I had that part done, the rest of that all got done in the browser. I do not want to spend my time trying to set type in Photoshop. It's a nightmare, and it's not fun to do, and it's a huge waste of time because you spend all that time getting it to look right, and then somebody else has to come along and spend all that time writing it in code. It doesn't make any sense.
I agree. Here, here. But then I'm not really a designer, so that I'm biased. But you are a designer, so
I am.
So it must be okay.
Yeah, and you know, like if I'm working on something, you know, I want a little box to promote, like sign up for the newsletter, and I can't quite get it looking the way I want in the browser, I will like pop over into Photoshop or something and kind of play with it there because you have so many more tools that are design focused there, and sometimes there's just a happy accident, like you accidentally apply a filter in Photoshop, you're like, oh, actually, that kind of works. I'm going to go with that, which doesn't really happen that much in the browser. So I don't, it's not an exclusively in the browser thing, but the majority of the work and definitely all the typesetting and typography gets done in the browser.
Gotcha. Happy little accidents. That made me think of Bob Ross and his painting.
Exactly. Happy little trees.
Happy little squirrels. Oh, yeah. Okay, so those are your design tools. When it comes to hashing out some code, what are you using?
Sublime Text 2 and SAS and Compass, desktop server. I think that's probably about it.
All right, so I was going to make a snarky comment about why you haven't updated to Sublime Text 3 yet, but I'll just not.
I know. I don't know why I haven't. Everyone asks me that all the time. Like, why are you still using 2? I don't know. I just am. And I've seen people using 3 and it doesn't look that different, so I guess I'm just not that excited about 3.
That's all right. Maybe it has to do with maybe the only thing you're really missing out on is some package compatibility or something. I don't know what all.
Yeah. Oh, and then the other thing is that I took all this time to set up, so I use 2 different computers, and I took all this time to set up Sublime Text so all of my packages and settings are in Dropbox and sync across my computers. And I'm really lazy. I don't want to do it again for 3.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Do you use the built-in like SFTP tools to connect to web servers?
In Sublime, I don't actually use that. While I'm developing a site, like when I want to put it up on staging servers to share it with a client, I usually use the desktop server deploy to move it up to that. And then once in a while, I use FileZilla for FTP, but try to usually do Git and deploy from Git for the production site.
Cool. And this is a self-promoting announcement that I'm about to make. But while we're on the topic of development and tools and workflow, later this summer I'm going to be doing a webinar series specifically on my development workflow. And not that it's anything groundbreaking, but the idea is for people that are either looking for a new workflow or don't really have a workflow to give a conceptual overview of all the different components and then tie that together. Anyways, if you're interested in that, check out WP. I bought the domain and I can't remember it. WPDevelopmentWorkflow.com.
Awesome.
This is what happens when you get old, Natalie. Moments.
Wait, I'm old too.
Well,
I might be older than you.
I don't know. I'm pretty 96. The spring semester of 96 would have been my first website build with front page. So I'm I'm right there with you.
Oh
And,
yeah, that was like pretty much the same time as me.
we can celebrate our ancientness together.
All right.
Oh, Jackie is asking, do you have a favorite package in Sublime Text for formatting PHP?
There's a WordPress package which is amazing that will autocomplete all of the WordPress functions for you, and then also fills in all the parameters that you have to pass into them. Which I like. No matter how many times I enqueue scripts, I don't remember what those are, and there's a lot, and they all have to go in there in the right order. So it's a blessing. I use that one. That's my favorite one, I think, which I know isn't PHP specific, but WordPress.
Hey, that sounds good to me. Yeah, so there's PHP linter, I think is what I'm using. Maybe that's just to show errors. I've got so many packages installed, I kind of forget which package does what.
I know.
So if I ever had to start clean on a machine and re-download packages, I'd probably be a little bit of a loss.
Yeah, it's tough teaching students because sometimes I'm like, oh, well, you just do this, and I don't realize it's like Sublime doesn't do that out of the box. It's a package I have. Oh, whoops.
Well, Devinder actually has a nice little kind of roundup question. He says, future plans, more of web development in a specific. Wow.
Easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say. You mentioned that you've done a lot of nonprofits and small business sites, but any other specific direction you would look to in there?
I'm definitely looking for to help out people running certain types of small businesses. Like, I've done a lot of work with yoga studios and gyrotonic studios and Pilates studios and things like that. So definitely kind of brainstorming ideas for a way to help those small business owners out, and looking forward to kind of developing something that'll work well for them, and that's kind of the direction that I'm looking to go for right now. But I don't, like, maybe I'm just too old, but I've kind of started to realize that I can make plans, but life is just going to be like, that's funny that you thought that's what was going to happen. So I don't tend to plan real far in advance.
That's probably wise because, yes, the best laid plans, ...
Yeah. I just, sometimes, opportunities come along that you would have never been able to plan for or expect, and those end up better than anything you could have thought of. So,
amen. I like to have a plan, but keep it flexible enough for exactly what you said, for when those opportunities do come along that you can say yes to them.
Yeah.
Nicole says that she loves the look and feel of your website, Natalie, and that we are not old. So thank you. Thank you, Nicole. You're reminding me.
Thank you, Nicole. I know.
Oh, well, we're about to wrap it up here. If you have another question for Natalie that you want to slip in under the wire, tag it at #OfficeFM. And as a reminder, our lovely sponsors for this episode are DreamPress, which is a managed WordPress hosting service by DreamHost. And they're the only, fun fact, they're the only managed WordPress host that actually includes email as part of that monthly cost, which is really very affordable. So check them out at dreamhost.com/office-hours. And then the beloved desktop server. I was just reading or sent an email this morning, somebody that was having issues with desktop server, and she said, I got on the phone or email or chat or something with Greg Franklin, who is one of the developers over there, and he spent 2 hours with me, but we got it figured out. And I was like, yes, they're awesome.
They are.
Yeah, their customer service is amazing as their product. You can learn more about them over at serverpress.com. And with that, Barry says I have questions over in my Hangout. Thanks, Barry, because Not very good at checking my. I say people can post questions there, but then I'm not very good at actually checking those sources. So let's refresh and see what we've got. Well, dagnabbit, I don't see any. Is it in the Q&A? No, I don't see it in the Q&A. Maybe it's in the Office Hours FM community. I'm going to check that out. That's over on Google+. And apparently I'm asking too much of my bandwidth right now.
Oh, I just saw 2 questions in the Q&A.
Oh, you see them? How come? Well, here, ask them of yourself, because I can't see them.
Okay, Suzette said, do you need to know JavaScript really well to use jQuery, or can you use it knowing a little? And I would say you can use it knowing a little, but you want to be careful not to just learn jQuery. You definitely need to know JavaScript too. So if you're learning them, learn them both. You don't want to kind of take the easy road out and just learn jQuery and not understand JavaScript and the principles that underlie it. And then Barry has a question. Assuming the free version is in the repo, how do you limit the hotspots to 20? Does it take other code to have more than 20 hotspots? So if you're really, that's about my plugin WP Draw Attention. So if you're really smart about code, you could probably figure that out. How we're doing that.
I happen to know that Barry's a pretty bright guy, so I think he might be able to figure that out.
Yeah, he might be able to. But then also the kind of the code we're using to do the responsive highlighting of the map, that's a separate jQuery plugin that I wrote that I'm going to be releasing separately. So people could take that and build whatever they wanted off of it as well. So there's that.
Awesome. Well, this is the first time I've made my guest ask themselves questions and provide the answers. So thanks for rolling with that.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, Natalie, we have managed to spend an hour of your time and my listeners' time, so we're going to have to wrap it up. But given all the stuff that you've got going on, I'm just proud that you took an hour to come on the show. I appreciate you sharing with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
You betcha. And I guess, well, I don't know what the next WordCamp is I'll see you at, but I hope to encounter you at one soon. And people who are listening, if you're ever on the West Coast, just show up to any random WordPress event and someone will know Natalie.
Yeah, they probably will. But we have WordCamp LA coming up in September as well.
Oh, there you go. Which weekend is it?
The last weekend, 26th and 27th. Okay. Good,
because WordCamp Dallas-Fort Worth is September 12th, so we're not overlapping. That's good.
No, we're not.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And you can watch a replay of this episode over on officehours.fm along with every other show we've ever done in the course of history. And with that, we'll bid you adieu to next week. Bye.
Bye.